have breaking news, and for that we bring in our NFL insider extraordinaire, Adam Schefter, as there is a lot of news from the NFL today, as expected. Shefty, what do we have?
Greeny, a busy morning in the NFC North. Moments ago, the Chicago Bears parted ways with Matt Nagy, let him go fired this morning. No surprise there. The Minnesota Vikings have fired their head coach, Mike Zimmer, and their general manager, Rick Spielman. So Matt Nagy's out in Chicago. Mike Zimmer, Rick Spielman out in Minnesota. The NFC North making a host of changes this morning, none of which come as any terrible surprise here when we look at it. Matt Nagy met with Bears ownership this morning at 7 a.m. Central. Then they called a team meeting that may still be underway as of right now. That was scheduled to begin at 8 a.m. Eastern, where Matt Nagy was meeting with his team. And I would imagine, I don't know that officially, Greeny, that he informed them at the meeting of what had happened today, that he had been let go. And I'm sure he thanked them for all their time and services. Now the Bears face a big decision going forward as to who will be the head coach. And I think a lot of people wondering about the general manager, Ryan Pace. No official word yet. My understanding is, I think the sense was that he was going to be retained, but that is not official. Again, Matt Nagy's out. Ryan Pace, we don't have official confirmation of, but my understanding was the expectation was that he would be kept in place. If we go over to Minnesota, sweeping changes there with the Vikings. Mike Zimmer knew his time was coming to an end. People around the league knew that his time was coming to an end there in Minnesota as well. And so he is out as the Vikings head coach. The general manager, Rick Spielman, is out as the Vikings head coach. Zimmer had 8 years to try to get it done in Minnesota. It didn't happen. And now both NFC North teams this morning are making dramatic changes, Greeny.
All right, that's Shefty with the very latest here. Again, not unexpected, and we'll see if there's anything further today. Shefty, stay close by. Thank you. Again, the big news, Chicago and Minnesota with coaching changes. You see Mike Zimmer on the screen there and Matt Nagy as well. Dan, just quick reaction here, obviously in Chicago. This comes as no surprise.
Yeah, it's something that was warranted because Matt Nagy, I felt, failed to realize that the most important thing this season was to show the development of Justin Fields. Yep. And they kept him on the bench and kept him on the bench, and then they had the opportunity to play a little bit, and there was so many bright spots, and that never happened. And we said this going into the season. This was your second shot to try and prove that you were capable of developing a young quarterback, and you didn't. I wish him well. I hope he lands on his feet. But this is the second most important decision in the history of this organization. I think the first one was the selection of Justin Fields, and now it's going to be who you decide to be the head coach to steward his development.
No, I absolutely agree with that. We all kind of understood what Matt Nagy was faced with at the beginning of the season, and it seemed like Matt Nagy was the only guy that didn't understand it. Right. And now you watch the way that this team goes, the way that the quarterback position was handled, and you knew they had to move on. It's going to be extremely important who you get to steward Justin Fields. He's a guy with an immense amount of talent. He definitely needs work, but he needs someone that can mentor him into being the player he can become.
Yeah, I think go out and get a real leader. And when you look at decisions that this organization has made, the hiring of Mike Ditka comes to mind that we wanted to bring back a Bear. Would it be, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, could we see Harbaugh return as a coaching candidate for the, Chicago Bears?
So number one, that would be the number one phone call I would make.
Absolutely.
Would be Harbaugh. Absolutely. I would call Nathaniel Hackett from the Green Bay Packers. I would call Sean Payton from the New Orleans Saints.
Are you forgetting about somebody?
I would call Doug Peterson.
Are you forgetting about somebody?
Who was that somebody?
That would be me, but I'm not saying, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in going to be a head coach. I'm not interested in it. I don't believe the rumors about being a head coach. I'm not saying it. I'm not commenting on it. You sit back and walk out there, I mean, but here's the thing. But Harbaugh, I think, is a logical choice. They did it with Mike Ditka, and it worked. And the same kind of intensity and passion that they got from Ditka, they can get from Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh played quarterback under Mike Ditka in Chicago in the early 90s there. Mike Ditka was brought back as a Hall of Fame tight end by George Halas, the patriarch of that franchise once upon a time, and led them to what remains the only Super Bowl they ever won. As far as Nagy is concerned, the bottom line is this. He was brought there to mentor a young quarterback. That guy's name was Mitch Mitch Trubisky. That's 2 quarterbacks already that it didn't wind up working out with. So while I don't sit here and call for anybody's firing, I wouldn't want anyone to do it to me. This one certainly makes sense. And I will say this, if they keep the general manager in place, that will be very unpopular amongst the fan base.
Yeah.
Because that's the same general manager who drafted Trubisky ahead of Deshaun Watson and Mahomes and everything else that has gone wrong.
But the challenge, so I said week 1. You guys know where I stood on Matt Nagy. I thought that was the perfect example of why they needed to move on from him. The challenge for Chicago, when you choose to hire a new general manager, the cupboard is bare somewhat with that roster and picks.
Yeah.
So you got to be fair to the new general manager and the new head coach to give them time to recuperate.
Yeah, their first-round pick is with the Giants now. They traded up to get Justin Fields last year, but at least they have that building block in place. We'll see. Again, the news. Matt Nagy out in Chicago. Mike Zimmer and general manager Rick Spielman out in Minnesota. Those from Shefty in just the last few moments. We'll break briefly. Face the Cowboys on Sunday. So much to take from this game here. And let's start by giving credit to the quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, no one ever talks about him when we talk about San Francisco. That last drive and regulation was clutch.
No, Jimmy G was the reason the San Francisco 49ers won yesterday. Obviously, Deebo Samuel made some huge plays, but Jimmy G led this team to victory. He made every throw in the second half that this team needed for him to win. And when we often talk about the San Francisco 49ers, it's about the pass rush, right? It's about the versatility of a Deebo Samuel or George Kittle being one of the top tight ends in the league, but we never speak about Jimmy G. We never say that Jimmy G can be a reason that this team becomes a Super Bowl contender. But yesterday he was. Yesterday, when it got late in the game, I gave the Los Angeles Rams the win because I didn't think Jimmy G could pull through. I didn't think he'd make the throws to allow this team to win, and he did.
I think they won because of Deebo Samuel. I mean, Jimmy G was really good, right? You saw this team fall down 17-0, and Kyle Shanahan never wavered from their identity, continue to run the football, the play action pass, but Deebo took over. You motion. Now look at the communication from the defense, RC, right? And then as Kittle goes back across the formation, watch that slot defender. He steps down just for a second because he's got his eyes there. That allows Jennings to go down, crack block him. That's just enough for Deebo to get one-on-one on the perimeter versus that corner. His physical play and his burst is going to be too much. Then another, you run the football, motion him in the backfield, hand the ball off to him. 2 things are important here. 1, he's got to get that ball and tuck. And then 2, Jennings has got to go down to sell that block. Jalen Ramsey eyes in the backfield a little bit. Easy touchdown. This is probably the play of the game, though. You got that Palms coverage, cover 4, cover 2. He's reading that number 2 receiver. Out route. That makes him a squat corner. Now, Deebo's going to inside release and go to that corner up behind him. Great throw by Jimmy G, but he gets another 20 yards because of the yards after the catch right there. So Jimmy G was really good, but just the not only the versatility by Deebo, but just the explosiveness by him.
I think the one thing too, Green, you have to give the San Francisco 49ers, and we talk about this all the time, I always say the San Francisco 49ers are the team that's most aware of their identity.
This is who I am.
Yeah, they know exactly who they are. When they got behind in this game, they never departed from that. They didn't become a team that went run and shoot, right? It wasn't Warren Moon and the Houston Oilers and they were going to throw the ball all around the yard. They remained consistent to who they were, and that's why they got back in the game.
Well, that's a team that's down 17-0, and they never abandoned running the football. We talked earlier about the Colts, who only ran the ball 15 times with Jonathan Taylor yesterday in a game that was not nearly as out of reach as this one seemed like it would be. So, do the Niners now?
It's a bad match for the Dallas Cowboys.
What's that?
Way to host.
The Niners are the team nobody wants to play, right? And it's the Cowboys who draw them first.
It's a bad matchup for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a bad matchup for anybody in the NFC. I think it's mostly a bad matchup for the Cowboys because the Cowboys' strength is their pass rush by the front. Well, that run game is going to minimize that a little bit. A brilliant coach in Kyle Shanahan is going to do everything he can to try to minimize the impact of number 11, Micah Parsons. How many different things can he get him to look at to play a little slower? The screen game. Maybe you try to get him running sideline to sideline and the counter action. I also think he's really good at finding weaknesses of a defense people-wise and attacking those guys. Anthony Brown has been attacked on that coverage, right, 30 for a long time. So I just think it's a really bad matchup for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, I think it's a bad matchup for everybody in the NFC.
I think in today's football, anytime you find a team that is built on physicality, they're bad matchups, right? We've gotten into this point where we want to see run and gun. We want to see things spread out. And when you have a team that can directly attack you downhill, it's difficult. But like Dan mentioned, the things that Kyle Shanahan can make you